All right, welcome into another episode of the Young Dad Podcast. I'm your host, Jay. Super excited to be here with you guys today. Before we jump in, I need y'all to do one thing real quick for me. I need you to go down to the description of the show on whatever platform you're on. They're all the same. Subscribe to the email list, be the first to know about new episodes, guest appearances, dad hacks, dad advice, all the dad stuff, all the things. Go and subscribe to the email newsletter. Best way to learn about new things that are coming, have come out, will be coming out, and be the first to know. So, with that, go ahead and hit that, subscribe to that. I'm super excited to welcome my guest today, Jess. Jess, welcome to the podcast. Jess, you host the Panic Button podcast, which has been doing super well out of the gate. It just started at the beginning of this year, 2024. I don't know when this episode 100% going to come out, so you've probably been doing it for some time now, but your show is super cool. You talk about your own story and your own experience with anxiety, panic disorder, and you give a space for people to not feel alone, like they're struggling by themselves, and I love that. So tell us a little bit about you, about your podcast, and about how it got started for you.
Yeah, so like you said, just really a platform that I've given people and myself to tell their story about mental health, and just a safe place to feel comfortable doing so. I started doing this for therapeutic purposes only, and then I had people interested coming on that wanted to come on and share their story as well. Some people who work in the industry, some people who just battle themselves. So honestly, I've met amazing people so far in the community. And a little bit more about myself. I've been battling anxiety and panic disorder, I think 7 years now. And kind of in November, had a lot of life events that changed, coming out of the pandemic, just everything that really weighed on our mental health. I kind of just felt like I had really hit that bottom. So I wanted to do something to be therapeutic for myself and make changes in the right direction. And I was like, hey, therapy is awesome. I love going to therapy. And I was doing that. But there were some days that I didn't have therapy that I was like, I still want to get it out. And, I've dabbled in journaling before and I like journaling, but sometimes for me, it's easier just to talk. So I was like, I'm going to start a podcast. So started the podcast. And yeah, it's been great. The community is super welcoming for mental health and just really trying to change the stigma that we need to be having these conversations about mental health and that it's a safe place to do.
100%. And it's so important, myself being a man and understanding the mental health stigmas around it for men are crazy. And then also working in mental health adds another wrinkle, another layer on top of that. And then of course being a dad on top of that adds another layer on the importance to mental health for it. So I'm entrenched in this field of mental health and psychology and human services. So it's like I am up to my ears in mental health, and I carry around almost everywhere I go in my bag. I carry around a copy of the DSM-5 diagnosis criteria because that's what I'll bust out and just start reading if I need some leisure reading. Um, I'm a nerd, but I love learning about mental health and disorders, and understanding how they affect everyone because everyone's can be affected by the same disorder a little bit differently. Um, and I like to try to help at least like friends and family understand like themselves, but just like at a basic level. Because I feel like we get told all these terms and we get told all these um, big words, these psychological terms as to what's essentially wrong with us, and it makes it seem a lot scarier than it is.
Yeah.
It makes a label like anxiety or panic disorder seem like huge. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I feel like sometimes when we are given these diagnoses, we are not, necessarily told, like, now what? So that's also why, like, with my podcast specifically, I always say we're going to figure it out. We're not going to push that panic button, because it's taking the tools, learning about other people's stories, and, resonating with what other people are going through, whether they have the same mental illness as well as you. But even if they don't, it's all relatable. We're all still going through it. And having all of those tools and little tips and tricks that work for others, I feel has really resonated with the community where they're like, I didn't know this and I'm going to try that. So it's good to just be kind of like a voice of reason almost and like put myself out there, exposing myself, being vulnerable. But if that helps somebody get through what they've been diagnosed with, like that's all that matters, is how we get through it.
And a diagnosis is just that. It's just a diagnosis. It's not like the end all be all. It's not everything you are. It's not everything you're going to be. It's not everything you ever will be. I was asked just the other day in a message on Instagram by another friend of mine. Their sister had just gotten diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and they're asking me questions if they feel like a person with bipolar can go on to live a happy life without medication after being medicated, and if they can get through that. I said, of course they can. Like you can get past the medication phase of your diagnosis, of your treatment, of that. Like it doesn't have to last forever. Like it can, but you can put enough work in on yourself and on your side to essentially get off the medication, because your goal shouldn't be, at least for me personally, thinking working with youth and families a lot, I have to have this conversation, is like you don't have to be on medication forever. The medication can be
Right.
on for long enough to help rebalance those chemicals, because people don't understand the medication aspect of it at all. They feel like, oh, medication is just gonna fix me. Medication is just gonna make me better. It's like, no, medication's just to help you. Essentially, they're little chemical capsules, essentially, and you're just putting
Right.
chemicals into your body to help balance chemicals that you don't already have, to help balance things out a little bit, to give you that initial little bit of cushion to where you can actually breathe, to where you can actually start to work through these things. So if you are taking it and then you go to therapy and you're on it, you have that little bit of cushion to be able to breathe and work through the deeper rooted issues, to be able to gain the coping skills, to be able to gain the things you need to be able to work through it. And then in time, as you continue to take it, you continue to put the work in, you will eventually feel yourself weaning off that medication, and it won't be as much of a need, to the point where for me personally, I just started for, but I was like, okay, I'm feeling okay. Like I'm not feeling like I need it. Like I don't feel like I need
Right.
it. Like I'm not relying on it. Like I feel like I can cope, and I feel like I can balance my mood, and I can balance my things that I have going on, that this medication is treating or was treating. So I don't need it as much. So I just slowly stopped taking it, to the point where it's like, I think I'm okay. Like I'm not great, but like I know how to manage. Like I know how to get through it. And I feel like that's a very big misconception for a lot of people when it comes to medication and going down that route for treatment.
Like 7 years, that medicine is not the end all be all. Like I'm not ashamed that I'm on medication because it helps that day to day. But yes, like learning those tools is extremely important because, no one wants to really rely on the medication. But for me personally, where I'm at, I always tell people like it helps me where I'm at and it's going to help me get through. But I'm also working towards like, I'm not going to be on this for the rest of my life. So I think if you have that mindset and you want to find those tools, then yeah, like, just the day to day in and outs, like they end up helping you. But like you said, you have to learn those tools. So that's what I'm here for as well, is to help people like, hey, what do you do? What do I do? Like, and just sharing stories. And that works too. It helps us figure out how to cope and how to deal with some of these things that doctors don't talk about or that.
100%. And it's so important. So for you, how do you, I guess, how do you balance, or what are some of the things that you do to make it work between the stress of being a mom and between the stress of, having the mental health challenges, and how have you found yourself balancing like your own mental health mixed with the mom mental health, and kind of what was that for you specifically? Because you had it before, you've had it after, you had it during. What was it like before, I guess, during your pregnancy, and then after, like in that postpartum phase, um, for you a little bit with your own, anxiety, panic disorder, and different things that you may struggle with?
Yeah, so we might need to scratch this part out, but I did not carry my son. His other
Okay.
mom did. So
Okay.
I don't
Fair
want to
enough.
talk about something I don't relate to, but like, yeah, I
Fair enough.
mean, yeah.
How did
Sorry.
what were some of those emotions for you though, like when he was born? Like what
Yeah.
what changed for you? Because there's a new level of stress, when it comes into that. To develop that new aspect of life, how did those things like intertwine and mix for you?
Yeah, so I mean, he was a pandemic baby, so that was already like, oh shit. So he was born in the middle of the pandemic, right when it started, right when lockdown had occurred in March of 2020. So already I was a little bit high strung, and my anxiety levels were a little bit higher because one, I'm going to be a first time mom, and two, like we are in a global pandemic, like that no one knew what was going on. I'm like, why are we bringing another life into like this hole right now? So I kind of went into it very stressful, but obviously, like, the idea of having children is beautiful, and the realization of it is beautiful. So once he was finally here, it alleviated some of that stress. It was very hard for me and his mom to be first time moms and get through the pandemic with him. We didn't have a lot of additional resources. We didn't have family that could come help because, we're like, oh my God, nobody's coming in and out of this house. Like we're in this bubble. So that was hard to navigate as first time moms. But, for me, my son's always been my drive. And with mental health, I feel like you need something bigger than yourself to hold on to. And he has been that for me and given my life for the past 4 years. So before in March, he's really given me my purpose. I grew up, as cliche as it sounds, I always wanted to be a mom. I always wanted to be a parent, always wanted to have a family. And I think it's because I had really good parents who instilled those values of me of like, hey, we're very family orientated, so you continue this. And, I always wanted to be a part of that and have that for myself. That was like my dream job was to be a mom. So, managing being a parent with mental health, it's tough and it's not talked about a lot. And it's hard when you're having that crummy day, but you have this little human that you need to support and make sure that they're okay and everything that involves. So really, I've noticed for a lot of my life and being a parent, I've put myself on the back burner. And with mental health, that's not good. You need to put yourself at the forefront. Obviously, my son will always be top priority. And even till this day, he's top priority, but mental health is right there. So they're a little bit closer now, but before mental health was like really, really far down on the list. So really, I think just being able to recognize that, because a lot of people as parents, I feel like fall into a trap of I'm just a mom, I'm just a dad. Like they kind of get taken away by those images of like that's all that I am. And I think that I did a lot of work to show myself that I wasn't just a mom. For the most part, yes, I am responsible for this little boy that is my entire life, but I'm also a partner. I'm also a daughter. I'm also a full time employee. Like I have all these other labels, all these other things. So I didn't try to get consumed in that because I think that was a lot of pressure for me. And that obviously doesn't make your mental health any better. Like anything that could trigger our mental health is like, oh my God, like now we have a reason to get upset and anxious and panic. But, it's just, I've put him at the forefront, put my mental health just as close as that. And, I think the benefit that I have battling myself and his other mom battles as well with her own mental illnesses is I think we've made a comfortable environment for him to know that this is okay. And sometimes people in your life are going to have these days where they might feel a little off. They might not be okay. They might need a hug. They might need you to just be there. So we've really opened the conversation for him to express his feelings, especially, he's obviously being raised by two moms, but, to be in tune with your feelings. Like it's okay. And, to change that stigma of men don't talk about this and, they don't have mental health issues. So I think that that's given me the upper hand raising him with another woman, as well as just him being a little dude in the world that I can tell him, like, we're going to have these conversations. It's okay. This is a safe place. And, he may never have a mental illness when he grows up, and that's fine as well. But me battling myself, I know it's almost like I have the tools now on how to raise him better.
100% does. And I just have a question out of my own curiosity because I have a coworker who's in a similar situation where when her and her partner do decide to have a kid, it's gonna be their partner's eggs and she's gonna carry. So I'm just out of curiosity. Is it her eggs and a donor, your eggs and a donor, or I'm just really out of curiosity here?
Yeah, it's fine. We have like no like I mean me yeah, we have no shame in that. So it is my ex-wife's eggs and we have a donor.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
Very
I'm
cool.
like a weird like doctor person. I don't like needles and stuff. And kind of when we got into learning more about the process of doing this, I was like, I don't know. I was like, you might have to go first. So yeah, it was interesting though, but I feel like sometimes my mental health like has been triggered in the fact that like sometimes people in society be like, well, that's not your real son, that's not your kid, and they make those comments because I feel like some people just don't understand that this is how people have children, and no matter what that looks like, it's still your child.
Hmm.
So I think that affected me during the pandemic a little bit more than it should have, which probably did damage my mental health. But, I don't care what anybody says. Like, blood doesn't make you family. And, that's still my son at the end of the day, no matter what happens. So, but, people always got something to say about everybody's situation that's usually negative at some point.
Truth, truth. And you mentioned ex-wife. So are you and your ex-wife and your son's other mom now divorced? Co-parenting?
Yep. Yeah. We got divorced after the pandemic. I don't ever remember the year. I feel like the whole pandemic I came out and I was like, what year is it? Like, what are we even
Right.
doing?
True.
But I think it's been about 2.5 years now.
Okay.
And we're good friends, That's somebody that had seen me at a lot of vulnerable stages in my life. And we have a child. So we've always made sure that we've put our son at the forefront. And I
Absolutely.
think that we're always going to continue to do so because that's what these kids need, right? They don't need a stickier situation than what they're already born into. We already are aware of the idea that he might get like some comments made to him like, oh, you have two moms, you don't have a dad, and things like that. But I think that we just try to make it as easy as possible for him because we know that kids can be mean. We know adults can be mean. So really like nurture, and like trying to be there for him and let him know that his situation is okay. And everyone is always so welcoming of him and knows that this is, not the cars that he might have wanted, but this is the reality of it. You don't have a dad, you have two moms, and that's just as good. I always tell him, like, hey, you're one of the lucky ones. Like, you got two moms. So he's got great uncles, though, who really kind of fill a little bit of a void, and a grandpa who does a good job of doing that, too. So we like to.
Absolutely. No, that's important. I'll get to that in a second, but I love what you mentioned about like identity there. The first part of that before we got off on another tangent there. I'm all about the tangents. I'm a tangent oriented person. Um, the identity part is so important because I feel like especially for dads, it's so easy to get lost in those identities. It's so easy to get lost in one identity that you forget all these other identities that you are. You forget all these other parts of you. You
Oh,
become a
yeah.
dad and you get lost in your work and you start working all the time and um all these other things come up and you forget like parts of who you are. Like you forget like, oh, I used to be someone that really enjoyed doing this, or I used to really enjoy doing this, or I used to really enjoy doing this, or this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, when's the last time I called my uncle and asked him to go fishing? Or man, when's the last time I made time for my grandpa and went over and helped like work on the truck or something? Or when's the last time I even called my brother? Or when's the last time I even connected like socially with those who I know love me and like care about me? When's the last time I ordered or bought a book that I enjoy, like a science fiction book? Or when's the
Yeah.
last time that all these things, all those things I mentioned are all coping skills or can be seen as a coping skill. When's the last time you
Sure.
practiced a coping skill that you didn't even realize was a coping skill. That just made you feel good. When's the last time you as a dad did something that made you feel good other than just like stress and, freak out and work way too hard for way too long, and then when you get home, you're burnt out, you're tired, you have nothing left for your kids when they have everything left for you. And then
Right?
you're short with them, you're mean, you're tired, you're grumpy, all these things. Like it's so common, so easy. Hold on one second. Um,
You're good.
I gotta get a dog out of my closet. If you saw my closet opens because my dog went in there, my little chihuahua, so I go get him out. Go ahead and mention that though. Um, some of the things you were mentioning for him being a boy, how are you working through that with him, or what kind of environment or things are you intentionally doing to help him not feel like he has to fall into the stigma so he doesn't fall into those stigmas as he grows up?
Yeah, so we're very transparent with him, and we let him like not get away or do anything he wants to do. But I think that me and his other mom really advocate for him finding himself and for him picking out what he wants to pick out, wearing what he wants to wear, taking away some of those outside stressors that he might not recognize, like, telling him you don't have to pick between this or that. You can have both. Or, if you don't want to play with cars today, that's okay. At a young age, we're always told boys don't play with dolls. If my son asked for a doll, like I would give it to him. I would buy it for him. He never has, so we've never come across that. He's very, very much like a little dude. Loves cars and monster trucks and dinosaurs, and like now we're into boogers and like all of these, icky boy things we like to say. But if the tables were to have turned, I feel like he knows that it would be okay. I mean, at one point, I mean, it probably still is true. I haven't asked him in a while, but if you ask him his favorite color, he'll tell you rainbow. And I'm like, cool. Like, I'm not going to say like, hey, like that's kind of weird. Like, we should probably just like not say that. I'm like, cool. And he loves rainbow stickers. And, he's very in tune, I think, with both sides that there is, because I feel like a lot of men do have a little bit of more of a feminine side that they either push down or they let come out, right? And I feel like we have been very open with him about conversations that might occur or anything along those lines to let him know that it's okay for those both sides to come out. We're not going to look at you any different, treat you any different. But yeah, it's really just, again, the openness. There's nothing that you can do besides let these kids be themselves and just support them. Because I think that's huge as parents. We need to just continuously provide a safe environment for our children to be who they want to be. And they're going to figure it out, and we will give them the tools to do so. But you have to allow them the environment to do that. That's the biggest thing. So I think that me and his mom have just made a very healthy environment for him to figure it out. Whatever way he wants life to go, however he wants to behave, whatever he wants to play with, I'll be there to support it. That's all I can do. I'm not going to tell him who to be. My parents didn't do that. They didn't tell me who to be, and I'm not going to raise my son to do that. So, and I know that's not the case for a lot of people, and that's what we have to change is we have to let these kids feel safe. Safe and heard and loved. That's all that we can do. And at the end of the day, it's exhausting.
Absolutely, 100%. And when my older one was little, she would see a rainbow, and it just made me think of this. She would just say like, "Love is love." Whenever she saw like rainbow stickers and things like that, because I'm pretty sure we got like a Dutch sticker one time that said "Love is love," and it had a rainbow on it, and she was just barely old enough to like talk and like remember those things. So that's like what she remembered. And she always has associated like rainbows with like, love and stuff, and I just think that's really cool. So that made me think of that. But I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I
Like
love it.
it's so important. Like post divorce, like I've been divorced for 3 years now. Um, and it's so important post divorce. I would not say like me and my ex wife are good friends at all. Um, we're cordial. I don't really want to be friends with her anymore.
Sure.
Um, but like we're cordial enough to like support the kids and keep the kids at the forefront. I think that's so important, like when
Right.
co-parenting. to be able to create
Yes.
and foster those environments to where it's like safe and where it's like accepting and whatnot. Like my older one, like she's super girly. She is girly to the fullest extent, but loves Pokemon. Um, loves her some Pokemon,
Awesome.
loves Pokemon, um, things like that. But outside of that, she's 100% girl. And then my little one, she is all over the place. One minute she's playing with Barbies, one minute she's drawing like a dinosaur, the next minute she's playing with Play-Doh, the next minute she's drawing and coloring, and the next minute she's who knows, and then she's watching basketball with me on the couch, kind of thing.
I love it.
And she's all over the place. She's she's crazy. She's wild. She's so fun. So it's so fun to see like the differences in like my kid, but like how they both have like full freedom to express themselves is really cool, and how they get to be what they want to be. Because I definitely didn't have that, you know, like it was definitely for me pushed down, and I think it's really cool that your son knows that he has like female or not female, male role models like around him and uncles and grandpa that really help and support him. I had that because I was raised by my grandma. And so I had both roles that were trying to be filled by everyone else of like mom and dad. I feel like I was very well supported by the females in my life, between my grandma, my aunt, and other female role models I had around me, other ones that I kind of more so adopted myself to be like those different figures and whatnot that I really respected and looked up to as mothers. And then like same for like the dad role, like my grandpa who was raising me passed away when I was 8 years old, and so that void was like always there, up until I lived with my dad, when I was like 13, 14 years old. But normally that role was pretty void for that good chunk of my life. And so, well, both roles really were pretty void. So it took a lot of like myself filling those roles, filling those voids, and looking to others because like I didn't know where to look for that kind of stuff. I didn't know where to get the advice or things like that. So I just picked up on a lot of really bad habits and a lot of like poor habits because I didn't really have that. So a lot of it was like pushed down because like didn't really have a place to like express the other side. I think you're right. Where like boys
Right.
and men, like it's either pushed way down or it's expressed, and that feminine side, and it's really hard. There's really no in between. Uh,
Right.
for men, you either express it or it's pushed way down 10 feet under, and then it's so obvious that you're pushing it down. Um, and there's no in between. So it's important to make sure that our boys especially have those good role models, whether it's dads be dads and be fathers and be daddies and be all the words, be all the things, to make sure that you know he has to have father figures. Uh, Anybody has two moms who are super cool and cooler, uh, that love him and care about him and support him, versus having a father who just like didn't, Um, and so it's so important for dads who are involved to be dads, because then like being a daddy is someone who's like there day in day out, being a dad, being a daddy, day in day out, ups and downs, present, there every day. And it's so important to be that daddy for your kids if you are, because it's cool, it's fun, it's the most rewarding and most
Yeah.
exhausting thing there can be. So it's so important to be there for your kids and be involved, um, because without that, like they're gonna grow up and they're not gonna know how to express themselves, express their feelings, and be in these different circles. And they're going to have poor relationships. They're going to have probably poor academics. Some of them some boys are going to turn out fine because genetic predispositions, and they're going to be just fine. But they're going to be more at risk
Sure.
for the negative sides of it, for sure. And then you had mentioned, what else did you mention there? Safe environment. Okay, I think I touched on all the things I want to touch on there. And respond. So for you, starting, the podcast, and for talking about, your own mental health struggles, how has that been for you? What ways have you noticed yourself becoming better, growing, becoming a better mom, becoming a better person? Like, what areas do you feel yourself like growing in, like through the podcast?
Yeah, so it's actually funny. You need a little bit of backstory on that. So when I had brought the idea, the first people who found out were my mom and my partner. And I told them like, "Hey, I think I'm gonna start a podcast. Like, kind of, what do you think?" Because I'm always the person that unfortunately, and this is something that I'm working on, but I like reassurance a lot. I like the validation. I like that people to back me and know that I'm supported. And, I was like, "So what do you guys think? Like, do you think it's a good idea?" And they're like, they both kind of looked at me like, this means that you're gonna have to be vulnerable and talk about your feelings. But both of them were very supportive. Both of them said, do it. Like, try and see how it goes. But my partner laughs because I always say I'm not like a feelings emotional person, and I'm not. I never was. I didn't like to be in tune with that part of me. I have a very strong mom who raised me for a good chunk of my life by herself because my parents got divorced when I was 15. So I had really strong women in my life, and I didn't see them as emotional. So I guess I was like, I don't need to be that way. Like, you got to be this way to be strong. But what's changed doing the podcast is I'm very in tune with that reality that we have these emotions and these feelings that aren't bad, that they can be good and they can make you feel better when they're talked about and when you're expressing yourself and sharing stories. So really, I've become more vulnerable, and I think it's made me a better mom by being more compassionate and more patient and understanding that my son's going to mess up, that he's gonna piss me off. Like, don't fly off the handles. Like, it's true that you don't know what someone's going through until, like, unless they tell you. So from the outside looking in, you don't know what someone's handling and what they're battling. So really, that has been instilled in me a little bit more. Hearing all these people's stories that come onto my show, and people that I've met that look like just regular good old people. I mean, and they're all great, but you wouldn't know what they're battling internally. So it's made me very compassionate as well. And know that it could be worse. What I'm going through is not the end of the world. What somebody else is going through is not the end of the world. But giving grace to yourself and being compassionate with one another, and patience, is huge too. I think that I did kind of have my patience tested a lot through the pandemic with my son, because you didn't really have that escape to like go to the store if like things are getting heated at home, or like get that escape. So really doing the podcast now, coming out of the pandemic and everything a couple years later, has reinstilled some of that patience to have with my son. So I just think it's making me a better person. It's making me in tune with things I wasn't really in tune with. And with anxiety, sometimes we like to push and push and push our feelings and situations down, and then it usually just builds up. And if we don't talk about it, you're not getting that release. So I think it's really bringing a part to my life that I needed, that I didn't know I needed. And in the best way possible. It's making me better. It's making me more loving, more open to these conversations, and really just making me appreciate life more. Just you're more grateful when you accept your situations, when you hear other situations. You're very blessed and you're very grateful. So I couldn't have asked for a better situation, that me taking the risk of being vulnerable on my podcast, telling people my business. It's really paid off, and it's made me better. And yeah, it was worth the risk. And usually I was not a risk person. I'm a person, if I can't see the floor, I'm not jumping. And that could be because of the anxiety and the panic that I've dealt with for a long time, but I took the risk. And
Absolutely, I can 100% echo like all of that. Like it's made me just more open to like having conversations with like different people. Like 2 years ago when I started this, or year and a half ago, like when this started, summer of 2022, like I just recently interviewed a Reiki master. Like that was someone I would have never talked to. A year and a half ago, would have never talked to a Reiki master. I would never talk to so many people so openly about just so many different topics. Mental health, divorce, parenting, co-parenting, sharing my story and whatnot, getting it out there, putting myself out there for 100 plus episodes, almost at this point, sharing like my work that I've done typed up and posted that was just supposed to be meant for a blog and whatnot, and putting that just like out there and like sharing all the thoughts and ideas behind it and developing it to this point and having these conversations with doctors and high level professionals across like these different fields and stuff. It's just like it's so cool. And you know, talking to CEOs of my favorite companies that I use and use on a daily basis, like for myself and in my home, like it's crazy, like just how far it's come and how far it's going. Um, but it definitely has given me like so much more perspective because I've learned so many things. I've met so many amazing people. Um, that it's mind-boggling the amount of just knowledge that's out there. You know, there's so much out there
Yeah.
for everyone to like to be better, and there's so many stories that people can resonate with, and that's the hope, is that I share enough stories that someone can resonate with each and every story. Um, like recently at the time of this recording, I posted an episode with Janice Johnson Dowd. She hosts a parenting and recovery podcast. She's incredible, and our episode got so much traction because like I resonated with that episode. Like my biological mother's an addict, um, and just a fantastic episode overall. So many things we got to share and have in common, and I think she was honestly surprised that I was able to resonate so much with so much that she was saying. That I understood, that I got it, just from like the perspectives of my different lenses that I can take. Like it definitely given me so much more perspective and more lenses to look at life through. Like I'm totally okay with having conversations with random people, like in a parking lot or in a grocery store or like just being out there. When before it's like, don't talk to me, don't interact with me. I'm like, no, sure, I'll be the person that you avoid because I look like I want to talk. Because I do want to talk to you. I do want to interact with you. I do want to put a smile on your face. Like I do want to say hey to you. Like I do want to tell you you're doing a great job, Dad. Like you're amazing. Like you're killing it. Like I do want to tell you all these things. So also refresh your browser real quick if you can, and we're back.
Okay.
Uh, so short intermission there that you won't even have heard, but if you were hearing it and for some reason I didn't edit it out great, we had a little silence there for a minute, which is okay. It should come out regardless, but yeah. Anyways, yeah, podcasting is great. To be able to like get those perspectives out and to get that I don't know, it's very therapeutic. That when my brother and I first started this podcast, we got memes sent to us from family. It's like guys would rather start a podcast than go to therapy. Um, or two guys are really going through it when they start a podcast. Or a guy's really going through it when he starts a podcast. There's all these podcast jokes, and the jokes continue. Like everyone at work knows I have to do a podcast, and that it's low key like successful, and it's not like a joke podcast, and like it's actually something serious. Like, because I'm not a serious person. Like I have a hard time being very serious. Like I really have to flip
Yeah.
the switch of professionalism on. Like if I'm in a professional situation, I really have to flip that switch. Like it's almost like a personality change. Like I'm in that movie with the personality disorder. Whatever movies that's called, I forgot what it's called, but I have to like switch to like a whole different personality. Like I'll change like my demeanor and like my
Oh
face
yeah.
and everything. I'll like change it all, and then I'll flip it off, and then I'm back to normal. But I have a really hard time like flipping that on. So I'm like a very fun, easygoing. Like I try not to be too serious. I don't like taking things too serious because like then it's too serious when it's not, when things aren't meant. Some things are meant to be taken serious, but to an extent. I don't think anything should be taken
Right.
100% serious, um, unless it's like something way out there. There's things that should be taken 100% serious, but everything, has a different degree of seriousness. Like if you're taking something that should be 40% serious, 80% serious, then you're gonna be in the wrong, especially when it comes to parenting. Let's say they, I don't know, spilt a glass of milk or something, and you just have this big, huge reaction. You're yelling, screaming. It's like, it's just milk. It's just milk. Clean it up. Glass not broken. Make them clean it up. Move on. It
Right.
sucks kind of thing, but it's not worth the 80%. So I don't take anything really seriously. I don't really take a lot of things serious, and I feel like that's why I'm successful within the mental health field is because I try not to I take it serious, but like I also try to keep a perspective where it's like, well, it could be worse. Um and like let's check ourselves and evaluate where we're at kind of thing. Because maybe we're taking a little bit too serious, or maybe we're taking a little bit too far.
Yeah. Yeah, I resonate with that a lot. If you've listened to people that have listened to my episodes are probably like, yeah, I mean, unscripted and she just shoots the shit because like I say what I'm feeling. And, I have to also put on that like different face or like different persona in situations. Cause I'm very sarcastic. I like to say that I'm a sarcasm enthusiast. Just really like to enjoy life and shoot the shit and say jokes and make people laugh. But I think that's life, we're not, I always like the quote, we're not going to get out of it alive. Like, so why take it so seriously? Like we're here enjoying the ride. Like, and it's so much better to make people laugh and smile than to just be so serious and stern all the time. I mean, and obviously, like, it's funny because, like, I have that persona, and people, when my ex-wife was pregnant, they were like, who do you think is going to be the more strict parent? And we're like, oh, totally her. Like, totally her. There's a 7-year age difference. Like, she's older, she's more profound, and this, and I'm like, totally her. Like, I'm the younger one. I'm going to be the cool mom. Like, let's go fuck around or something. Yeah, I think it's totally the opposite way. Sometimes I am the more stern, strict parent, but we do have a lot of fun. But his other mom, I think, is more of like the nurturing, like let's have fun, and you know, I have been in instances where he has spilled milk or something, and I've kind of been like, like act like my day is ruined, but really it's milk, But I've been there, I've done it. So yeah, it's just kind of funny when those roles end up like playing out. But I could totally, like I said, resonate with you where it's easier to make people smile and laugh than it is to just continuously be like argumentative or always in that like fight or flight persona and just trying to not enjoy life. We're doing too much of not enjoying it instead of looking around and truly enjoying it and taking situations for what they are instead of like turning them into something they're not. And like you said, being more serious about like, oh my God, this is the end of the world. And it's like, well, it's not. Like it could feel that way, but it's not. And like we'll figure it out.
100%. And that's so important and that's so crucial. And I find myself, like you mentioned, like being strict. Like I find myself like being strict about, I'm strict about certain things. Like I try not to be strict about everything.
Yeah.
Like I'm strict about very key things. Like I'm very strict on, like, are you being kind to others? Are you being kind to each other? Are you being kind in general? If you're not, okay, then
Right.
strict dad's gonna come out. Are you being respectful of each other's space and boundaries and just respectful toward other people around you? If you're not, then it's gonna be strict. Are you being like loving or are you being hateful? Like my girls know if they say the word hate, they are immediately corrected. Like immediately. Like hate does not exist in our vocabulary. Like you can dislike something, you cannot like it, but you don't hate nothing. You don't hate no one, you don't hate nothing.
Right.
Because hate does not exist in your world. You're not gonna know what hate is. Uh, Absolutely not. And like I have like 5 things like loving, kind, respectful, accepting, and just being tolerant. Really, those are like my big 5 things, like my top 5 things to like instill in my kids, like value wise. Like if they're going against any of those, um, then there's a problem. If they're on a team and they're not being a good teammate, then there's a problem. Uh, Very few things will I try my hardest not to make into like a big problem. More so, it's just like well, so what kind of thing. Like let's deal with it. Like it's not my favorite thing. My little one likes to say. She likes to say it's not that deep. Uh, she loves to say not that deep, and she reminds everyone all the time. And it just shows the biggest difference between my 2 kids. Like my older one is very, very emotional, highly emotional, highly just like outbursty. Like my 6-year-old's in therapy, um, learning these different things, and she's been in therapy for a couple months at this point. Uh, so it's very fresh at the time of this recording, but it's good for her. She enjoys it. She likes it. But it shows like she's in therapy because she's so emotional. She has a hard time controlling her emotions. And then my little one's just out here saying, "Not that
Sure.
deep, bro. Not that deep." She'll fall off something and she'll just like
Yeah, right. Polar opposites.
they're so opposite. They're crazy opposite. But yeah, that's part of the fun. That's part of the good time. So
Yeah, I think like you said, it's, really just strict about making sure they're good people because
exactly,
that's what we teach them. They don't learn hate, it's taught. I truly believe that.
one
All those
thousand
negative
percent.
things, it's not, they don't know those things. They heard it somewhere or it's instilled at home. Just something that has popped up in my personal relationship with my son is he has figured out the word fat. And at our house, like, we're not saying that. Like, there's too many issues in today's society with body. And, I was like, we're not going to go there. So, and he's like, but it's not a swear word. Because to him, if it's not a swear word, it's not a bad word. So, you really have to, like, okay, how do you explain this to them? I'm like, you're right. It's not a swear word, but like it's just not nice. I was like, and we're nice people. We treat people with respect and we don't say things that might hurt somebody's feelings. So, it's taking the time to explain that to them, I think can very much so be impactful. Because as parents, I think that's like our primary responsibility is making sure that like if he says fat, like he's corrected because it's not appropriate. We don't there's a time and a place. Like, obviously, again, it's not the worst word out there. I totally understand that. But, it's just like, it's not nice. So, yes, that definitely starts at home where I swear, like, if he said that somebody was fat, I'd probably lose it. It's just like, I'm going to nip that in the bud. It's like, we have to be those people. And sometimes that does look a little bit like, oh, my parents suck. Like, I'm trying to make you the best person that society can have, and make you the least concerned about people's body image or be like, oh, that's fat, or, even saying like gay. Like, I don't say that around him. I don't want him to pick that up because, you know, before people would be like, oh, that's gay. And then people in the community would be like, well, what makes it gay? Like, that's not what gay means, So, like, I never say that word around him. One day he'll figure it out, but we're not going to use it in a bad way. Like, I can't stop him from hearing what other people are saying, but it is 100% my control on how he understands and interprets what people are saying and what we repeat.
100%, and that's a big one. You mentioned the that's gay. That used to be so big back when like we were growing up. Like it was just thrown
Right.
around. Like
You just
music.
said it. I said it. I'm fully honest. I said it. Like,
I said it. Yeah, I said it back in the Bay Area in California in like the early 2010s. Like I threw it around in the Bay Area. Like we just threw it around. Like it was fine. Like growing up in the early 2000s, like it's fine. Like we just threw it around. Like we knew what it meant. We knew like it meant like it wasn't cool and it wasn't like status
right,
quo. Like it wasn't like we weren't trying to say it as an insult. Like or like back in the day it would be like, oh that's fat. That's fat. Or like kids right now they'll say like fat facts or fat. Like this is like a word to say big. Like because alliteration's fun. Grasping the English language is fun, and mastering it's fun.
I can't
Uh,
keep up with the new shit that kids say these days.
yeah, no, same. It doesn't make any sense, but no, it's so important to like just teach them to be like tolerant and like respectful, because like there's no point in letting them say something or do something because it can be harmful and damaging to someone else, and they might not even realize it, and they're not gonna know.
Right,
Like if they just say, "Oh, you're fat," to a kid, maybe that kid's not fat. Maybe it's just, they're wearing a puffy jacket and they look fat, and then they get their ass beat. And it's like, oh,
right,
well, that was a mistake. Or, they say it to the wrong person at the wrong time and something happens like down the line. Like, it's no, there's no point in mentioning something about someone's body because you never know when it could be, the final nail in the coffin kind of thing. It's like, oh, that random little boy called me
right.
fat today. That was my last straw. Bada bing, bada boom. That other kid, had a successful suicide attempt, and now, your kid's part of the blame kind of thing. Maybe they'll never be named or
Right.
mentioned, but like they'll figure it out. Like someday, it's like, oh crap, I was the kid that called that kid fat and created a body issue, or it can lead to further mental health issues, body dysphoria, or eating disorders, or so many things that it can lead to. So it's important to be respectful of people and their bodies because there's so many issues right now that are stemming just from body issues, identity issues, and they're going deeper and deeper and deeper, and they all lead to mental health disorders, and then the mental health disorders are, I believe, are truly the underlying cause um, of a lot of these issues we see in society right now. Because I have no problem with gay people, with the LGBTQ plus community. I have no problem, and if you're gay, you're gay. Cool, that's your choice, not my choice. I'm happy for you. It's not for me. It's not my cup of tea. Um, you know, Gay women and I, we love the same thing. We love the same thing. Um, we have more things in common than you think. Okay. I have a coworker who's gay, and her and I joke about love that same thing. Um, and so we get it. So we're not as different as we think we are, but there's mental health disorders, running rampant among our youth. Suicide rates among adolescents and teens are way too high in our country, and
Right.
there's a lot of issues that are stemming just from bullying, lack of respect, and there's a reason why 13 Reasons Why was so impactful and so successful, because it was so like true and like reminiscent and like resonates with so many people, because those issues are happening like within your local schools, like down the street from
Yeah.
you. Um, a lot of it starts in middle school, so you have birth to fifth grade to raise some decent human beings. Because once they get to middle school, the savageness comes out, the hormones come out, and kids are awful. Kids are ruthless.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like every middle school needs to be a reform academy, more or less, and you have to pass a test, a niceness test and a kindness test to go to a regular school, post that reform
Right.
academy to be a decent human, to then be successful. Like middle school should just be reform academies, because that's when it all comes out. But at least that's what I see in my line
Oh
of work.
yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I mean, I was picked on in high school for my weight, and I don't think that that's the reason I have like anxiety, but we'll never know. It's still just, you don't know what somebody's going through. So I always just tell my son, as cliche as it sounds, if you don't have anything nice to say to somebody, we just probably walk away from that one.
100%, hundred
It's
percent.
the oldest trick in the book. Like your moms will always say, you got nothing nice to say, you probably just don't talk.
Yeah, just
So
don't say
I make
nothing.
that pretty clear to him. Just you can think all these things you want to think, but as soon as those words leave your mouth, you cannot take them back. So just walk away, dude.
Yeah, right. They're inside thoughts. They're inside thoughts. Uh,
Yep.
I try to tell my kids like that's an inside thought. Let's keep that in our head. Like maybe we express that when we get home, kind of thing, and like our safe
Right.
space, or maybe we express that in the car, kind of thing. Like you can express it to me like in the car, because that's we still want to allow our kids to have that outlet to get it out,
Right.
so that it can be corrected and whatnot, and not stewed on too much. But again, you're so right. Like we never know what someone's going through. We never know like what they're struggling with. We never know what their challenges are. Like we don't know these things about people. So it's more the reason to just be kind, just be nice, just like give a compliment, or give some free encouragement. All the time. I was challenged by another dad that I had on the podcast. I don't remember who. Um, Actually, I do. It was Dave Campbell. He hosts the Dad Space podcast. He challenged me, just like whenever I go somewhere, just like give another dad some encouragement, give another parent some encouragement. Just tell them that they're doing a great job. Just tell them that they got this. Just tell them that they're crushing it, or like you see them like out here like trying and making it happen. Like whenever you can spread that sunshine, like spread it. wherever you can. So that's ultimately, as we get toward the end of this recording, challenge I want to keep giving to everyone else. Give that encouragement to someone random because you never know how much
Yep.
impactful that's going to be. Like, I still think about that dad I saw in the Walmart parking lot a few weeks ago that I told something to. I don't go out very often. I try to avoid going out. I don't like going out. I have a
Oh
podcast and
yeah.
everything, but it's like I'm like yesterday we were at this event in Yakima. We were about an hour and a half from home for my daughter for something, and everyone else was going to get ice cream afterwards, and I'm like, "Look, I will buy you a bigger ice cream than what you're gonna get there if we can just go home." Uh, kind of thing. Like to that level. Like I know these people. Like I go to church with them. I interact with them on a weekly basis. I sit and talk with them throughout, every single week. I see them and talk to them. And I did not want to socialize with them outside of those settings.
Yeah.
Um, so like I'm social enough, I'll turn it on, but like when it's off, it's when my tank's empty for socialness, it's empty. Um, but it's so important to I don't remember what I was saying before that, but spread that courage, spread that encouragement, spread that kindness because it's free, it's easy, and it feels really good. Like I think about that dad sometimes, not in like a weird way, but I'm like, man, because he said it back, like he gave that encouragement. It's like, man, I'll remember that interaction, like in that parking lot. Like next time I go to the Walmart, I'll be there at the Walmart in the parking lot, and I'm like, man, I remember that. Like dad, he was really cool. Like I remember like why he was there too. Like I remember the interaction so clear. It's like he let me know, like,
Yeah.
there was no bags, they didn't have no bags, so it's like he's like, "I hope you brought bags, like, you're gonna need them. They're out of bags, or I hope you have a light trip." Um, he was going to the store for his wife because his wife just had surgery and she was on bed rest, and, um, someone over was watching the kids, and um, like I remember it so clear. Like we had a whole conversation in like 2 minutes about like life and what was going on, and we just gave each other that encouragement. I'm like, well, man, you're doing great. Your wife appreciates you. Kids appreciate you. Like you're doing a great job. Like keep it up. And he's like, you know what, man, you too. Um, and like I remember him going and putting his cart away. He had like a little extra pep in his step after he was going to put his cart away. I noticed a lot of these little things about people because I work in the field, but uh, it was just so cool. It was a meaningful interaction to both of us. It felt good. So
Yeah. Yeah. We need those 100%. Like you said, it's free. And even if you're having a crappy day, someone's day is probably worse. So just keep it kind, honestly.
100%, 100%. All right, to wrap us up here, final question for you. What kind of advice would you have for like a struggling parent who's really, really struggling with like their mental health, with their, with their mental health in general, balancing like being a parent, their mental health, they're really down the dumps. What kind of advice would you offer that parent to try to help them start coming out of that like really dark, like down place?
Yeah, yeah. And, I've experienced this myself. So definitely for starters, I would tell them they're not alone. You're not alone in what you're going through or what you're going to continue to go through, but you need to see the bigger picture. You need to be able to realize that you are more than a parent, more than a mom, more than a dad, kind of like we spoke about earlier. There's so many more aspects of you that make you you that your children need. So you need to make sure that you are nurturing all those areas of yourself, whether that be going outside, talking to a friend, going to the grocery store, really fueling our mental health and our basic needs. There's other parts of you that you need to continue to nurture because our kids need that. Our kids need that and they deserve that. And I will harp on that probably until the day that I die, that my son needs what I have to offer. And when I don't see it myself, I know that he still does. He still sees somebody that comes and shows up 100%. And I will continue to give my child 100%. So really just, you got to fight for your kids. You got to, they really give you your purpose. They're everything. It's the greatest job in the entire world, hardest job in the entire world. And just don't lose yourself. Like we said, do not lose yourself. You are more than a parent, but to that child, you are enough and you are exactly what they need. So just continue to take care of yourself and the rest will follow. I really believe that, you really got to feed those basic needs that we need for survival and for nurture ourselves. And everything else will just fall into place. It's not rocket science taking care of ourselves. I just feel like as a society, we are so used to saying yes, yes, yes. And instead of setting those boundaries and saying, you know, I need a minute for myself. Like, no, I'm not doing that. I need some time, So really just take back that control that you think you've lost. Because I promise that it's still there and your kids need you, and we need you. As a society, we need all these walks of life and all these personalities that people bring to the table and their stories and what they have to offer. We need that. So we need you here. We need you to see the good and be the good. And I promise it'll pay off.
100%. You're 100% right there. I love that. But before I give you a chance to plug, I do have to just plug today's sponsor of the podcast, the June app. You can drive positive behavior change with June. If your child is struggling with behavior, habits, or routines while at school or at home, well, June might be worth a look. This new revolutionary app combines a video game that kids love with important tasks and habits that you want them to practice daily. Give the app a try for free and use my code YNGDAD to earn 25% off your subscription. See why over 500,000 families and over 1,000 therapists are recommending June. That's JOON. And visit joonapp.io/youngdad. That's /YOUNGDAD to learn more. And you can find those links in both our link tree and right down below in the subscription, alongside our email list link to be able to sign up for our email list for early access, podcast updates, tips and tricks, dad advice, dad hacks, and more. So, Jess, go to tell the listeners a little bit more about where they can find you, where they can listen to your show, where they can find you on social medias, and all the things.
Yeah, so you can find the Panic Button Podcast, Instagram at panic_button podcast. And in that bio, we do have our link to our YouTube episodes, and we are available on Spotify. So really, that's going to be your best way to stay in tune with us and learn everything. Again, panic_button podcast. That is our Instagram handle. And yeah, I really appreciate it.
Oh.
And it's been an honor being on here with you and talking and giving more people a platform to really do what they deserve to do.
100%. And then this is the YouTube channel. Go and give Jess and the YouTube channel lots of love. Give it some adoration there. You could find it right there. And then I just wanted people to be able to see it on Spotify so that they can clearly see that as well. Right there, bam, beautiful on Spotify. And I just wanted to lastly throw up the Instagram here for you so that people know exactly what they're looking for. Some people are visual learners, not me.
I appreciate it.
It up. So, and then bam, the Instagram as well. So, lots of fun content that just posts every day. So it's super cool. Uh, Tons of everything you post is like so relatable and so like there. New episodes, so exciting. So yeah, lots of good stuff over on Instagram, Spotify, YouTube. And Jess, thanks for coming on. I can't wait to do this again, but change seats. So
yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to it. Thank you very much again.
of course.